Am I the antagonist for allowing my 13-year-old to decide not to see her dad anymore? A bit of background. My ex-partner, X, and I ended our 15-year marriage about a year ago. He cheated, but it was ultimately my decision to end it. We have a 13-year-old daughter named Emma together. Emma has had a tough time dealing with the separation, as she has always been close with her dad. His decision to move out was especially difficult for her. He currently sees her only once a week because he claims to be too busy for more visits. Within a few months of our separation, X began dating a new girlfriend, GF. They do not live together yet. GF has 4 kids of her own, aged between 3 and 10. Approximately 6 months ago, X introduced Emma to GF. Initially, everything seemed fine, and everyone got along. However, since then, GF and her kids are present every time Emma has contact with her dad. Emma doesn't mind GF and the kids in general, and she even likes them. However, she does find the other children overwhelming at times because she is accustomed to being an only child. They always do activities as a whole family because having one-on-one time would be unfair to the other kids. Additionally, when Emma stays over, all 6 kids sleep in one bedroom at X's place. Emma has complained about the lack of privacy and expressed frustration at having to share her dad when she only gets to see him for a few hours each week. I tried discussing this issue with X and suggested a gradual transition that would benefit everyone. As it stands, he is damaging his relationship with Emma and creating long-term resentment. Unfortunately, he dismissed my concerns by calling Emma spoiled, and he accused me of being bitter and jealous because he has a new family now. X believes Emma is the problem because she doesn't fully engage with their family and needs to learn that she can't have all of his attention. He thinks she should adjust to his new family sooner rather than later. My argument, on the other hand, is that he sees his daughter only once a week, giving him 6 free nights to spend with his new family. They have been dating for around 6 months, still don't live together, so there is no rush to force family time. Moreover, less than a year has passed since our separation, and I believe Emma just needs more time to adapt to such a significant life change. Now, Emma has reached a point where she doesn't want to go to her dad's at all, and honestly, I don't want to force her either. Of course, if her dad were willing to listen to her concerns and consider her feelings, I would encourage her to go, but he has made it clear that he won't. We don't have a formal custody agreement in place, but I know X will blame me if she refuses to go and argue that she's too young to make that decision. He will say it's my responsibility to ensure she sees him. So, am I the asshole? You are looking out for your daughter's best interests and advocating for her needs. It's clear that she's struggling with the current arrangement and feeling neglected by her father. It's perfectly understandable for her to desire some one-on-one time with her dad and feel uncomfortable with the crowded living arrangements. Your ex's response to your concerns is dismissive and invalidating. He's not taking your daughter's feelings into consideration and is instead accusing her of being spoiled. It's his responsibility as a parent to listen to his child and make an effort to address her concerns. Your suggestion of a gradual transition makes sense, especially considering the recent upheaval in your daughter's life. It's important to give her time to adjust to the new dynamics and allow her to feel more secure and comfortable. Keeping the lines of communication open is crucial, and it's unfortunate that your ex seems unwilling to do so. Ultimately, you have to prioritize your daughter's emotional well-being. If she doesn't want to go to her father's under the current circumstances, it's important to consider her feelings. It might be worth exploring formalizing a custody agreement in order to ensure that your daughter's needs are taken into account. Am I the antagonist for not wanting my mom at my ultrasound? My husband, 31 years old, and I, 27 years old, are currently halfway through pregnancy with our first child. I was adopted at birth as my parents couldn't have children of their own. Because of this, my mom has been really involved in my pregnancy and wants to experience everything she missed out on. So far, it hasn't been an issue as she hasn't joined us for any appointments. I've been sending her weekly updates about the baby's size, development, and my pregnancy symptoms. However, a friend of hers recently mentioned how cool the halfway ultrasound scan is, and now my mom wants to come along with my husband and me. My mom and grandmother both have narcissistic tendencies, and my mom sometimes exhibits these traits. It was difficult growing up, as I had to hide my true feelings and lie in order to survive. Although my mom has started taking medication for depression and anxiety, she still has moments where she resorts to gaslighting and manipulation. Needless to say, she wasn't emotionally available when I was growing up. I don't want my mom to be present during my ultrasound. I want this intimate moment to be shared between my husband and me. Additionally, after experiencing a miscarriage in my previous pregnancy, my biggest fear is finding out something is wrong during the ultrasound. Following the miscarriage, my mom criticized me for taking too many pregnancy tests, which made me uncomfortable. To spare my mom's feelings, I lied and told her that only one person could accompany me to the ultrasound. I realized she was upset when she stopped talking to me, but I didn't know she knew about the lie. I thought that by offering her the opportunity to be present during labor, excluding the pushing part, she might feel better. However, her response was that she didn't believe she would be present for any of it and would only see the baby after we come home. I expressed that I wanted her to be there and the invitation was open, but she claimed she didn't feel welcome or wanted. She backed up and stayed out and revealed that she knew about my lie regarding the number of people allowed in the room. I admitted my lie, explaining my reasoning, and offered to video chat instead. However, she kept reiterating that she wasn't a stranger, implying that she wasn't important to me, and conveying how difficult this situation was for her. Eventually, I gave up trying to reason with her and told her I love her. She is important to me, and if she wants pictures, she should let me know. I haven't heard from her since. I can't help but wonder if I could have handled the situation differently, but I believe the backlash would have been just as severe if I hadn't lied. Am I the asshole for not wanting my mom at my ultrasound? It is completely understandable and valid for you to want your ultrasound experience to be a private and intimate moment between you and your husband. It is your pregnancy and your choice to decide who gets to be involved in these appointments. Your mom's reaction and manipulation tactics are not fair to you, especially considering the history of narcissism and emotional unavailability. You even tried to compromise by inviting her only for the labor part, but her refusal and hurtful comments show her unwillingness to respect your boundaries and prioritize your emotions. It is important to prioritize your own mental and emotional well-being during this time, and you should not feel guilty for setting boundaries and protecting yourself. Am I the antagonist for telling my sister she needs therapy for her unrealistic expectations? My sister Nora, who is 40 years old, married Aiden, who is 42 years old, 5 years ago. Aiden was previously married and had 2 children when they met. His daughter is now 14 years old, and his son is now 13 years old. Nora and Aiden recently had their own daughter, who is now 5 months old. Aiden and his late wife were childhood sweethearts, and their families were very close friends. Even after his late wife's passing, their families remained close and often spent time together to celebrate holidays or simply enjoy each other's company. Nora was made aware of this when she began dating Aiden, and she was assured that this close bond would not change. Aiden explained that their families had essentially become one big family over the years, and they would never exclude one another. Nora confided in me that it felt awkward for her to see photos of Aiden's late wife in various family members' homes. Aiden's parents had a few pictures from when he and his late wife were children, and from their marriage, and when they had the kids. Aiden's sister also had childhood and adult photos with her late sister-in-law, since they were close childhood friends. Nora interpreted this as a message directed at her. I reassured her that these photos were likely a reflection of the love they had for Aiden's late wife, and not a judgment against her. I suggested that she consider speaking with a therapist, as it was unlikely that these reminders would be removed, and she might benefit from professional help in accepting this reality. During their 5-year marriage, Nora mentioned multiple times that she felt like Aiden's late wife's parents did not fully accept her, unlike Aiden's own family. She was bothered by the fact that the children always referred to her as their stepmother, and strongly rejected her suggestion that they call her mom. It was after Nora and Aiden's daughter was born that she shared something shocking with me. They had only recently decorated the baby's room, despite Nora looking at inspiration boards throughout her pregnancy. 2 weeks ago, she came over and complained that Aiden's late wife's parents had gifted nursery decorations for their grandchildren, but had not done the same for her own daughter. She felt that they were not treating her daughter as their grandchild, and argued that if they wanted to be one big happy family, they should treat her daughter the same way they treated their own grandchildren. She believed that their failure to do so was the reason why her stepchildren referred to her daughter as a half-sister, rather than simply a sister. It was at this point that I suggested Nora seek therapy, because her expectations seemed unrealistic, and it left me stunned. She disagreed with me, insisting that I should be on her side, and that suggesting therapy meant I believed she was wrong. Am I the asshole? It seems like Nora may be struggling with feelings of insecurity and inadequacy in her blended family dynamic. While it is understandable that she may feel uncomfortable with reminders of Aiden's late wife, it is important for her to realize that the family's connection and love for the late wife will not disappear. It is unfair for Nora to expect the in-laws to change their behavior or treat her daughter exactly the same as they do their biological grandchildren. Suggesting therapy was a reasonable response on your part, as a therapist can provide the necessary guidance and support to help her navigate these complex emotions. It is not about labeling Nora as wrong, but rather about helping her address her unrealistic expectations and find healthier ways to cope with her insecurities. Ultimately, Nora should seek professional help to work through her feelings, as it can benefit both her and her family in finding a more harmonious balance. Am I the antagonist for telling my stepmother that by her standards I am better than her? It sounds strange, and I may very well be the asshole, but I'm not sure I regret it even so. Background: my mom died when I was 4. My dad remarried when I was 7. We'll call my stepmother Sheila. Sheila is the personification of the traditional wife trope, and while she's not a part of the Quiverful movement, she comes from a similar background. Basically, her entire self-worth is wrapped up in how many kids she has and how nice her house is kept. She has a lot of disdain for career women, especially unmarried, childless ones. Needless to say, I do not like or agree with Sheila, and I have no idea what my dad sees in her. My mom was the opposite. My teenage years were one long, constant argument because 1. I have refused numerous times to be adopted by Sheila. 2. I have 6 half-siblings, and I refuse to help her raise them. And 3. I am pretty much everything Sheila disapproves of. My dad tried to mediate as best he could, but it was a difficult situation. Needless to say, I do not go home often. I keep in contact with my dad, but I ignore anything from Sheila unless it's an emergency. I completed my surgical residency not long ago, so I took some time off for a vacation and a quick visit with my dad before I really get stuck into my practice. I agreed to come to their house for a cookout, knowing that I would probably be annoyed, but it was something nice my dad wanted to do for me. Now I don't have children or a partner. I love my career and I like being solo. Still, when I was an undergrad, I figured if I'm not going to use my eggs, someone might as well get some use out of them. So I did 3 rounds of egg donations and put the money towards med school. As a result, at last report, I have 8 biological offspring. Sheila decided to start her usual, "When are you going to settle down?" nonsense, and I was set to ignore her as usual. But then she said, "Don't think you're better because you have money. A woman's worth is in her home and children." I said, "Well, that would mean I'm still better than you because I have more bio children than you do, a nice home, and a successful career." She just stared at me for a minute and left. She didn't come back outside while I was there. My dad called later to ask what happened and said that even though she shouldn't have started the conversation in the first place, it was a low blow. She couldn't have more children after the last one, and she was very upset to be reminded of that. Plus, she has always thought that I look down on her. I do, but not because of her lifestyle choice. More so because she's so judgmental about it herself. Anyway, my dad wants me to apologize. A couple of the older half-siblings have sent me radioactive texts about it. I think she walked into that one, but given her fertility issues and knowing how much self-concept she has wrapped up in a big family, it might have been a little over the line. Am I the asshole? You have a strained relationship with your stepmother, Sheila, due to her judgmental and condescending attitude towards you and your choices. It is understandable that you would have some resentment towards her. In this scenario, Sheila was the one who initiated the conversation, making derogatory comments about unmarried and childless women. While your response may have been harsh, it seems like a product of built-up frustration and Sheila's ongoing judgment towards your choices and lifestyle. However, it is important to consider that Sheila may have been deeply hurt by your comment because of her fertility issues and her self-identity being tied to having children. Considering the circumstances, it might be worth having a conversation with your dad about your strained relationship with Sheila. It's important for him to understand your perspective and how Sheila's behavior affects you. It might also be worth reflecting on whether there is room for growth and reconciliation. Overall, while your comment may have been hurtful, it was a response to years of judgment and disrespect. Am I the antagonist for turning down my stepdad's offer to walk me down the aisle? I, a 27-year-old female, have decided to walk down the aisle alone on my wedding day. I made this decision for 2 reasons. Firstly, my dad passed away when I was 7, and if he were alive, he would have been my first choice. But sadly, he is no longer with us. Secondly, my mom has made it clear that it would be disrespectful to my stepdad if she walked me down the aisle, so she refuses to do it. Since both my parents are unable to fulfill this role, and I don't want to burden my paternal grandparents, who are already sharing a special dance with me, I feel most comfortable walking alone. I could ask my stepdad to do it, and I know he would be willing. However, if I'm honest, it would make me sad to have him replace my dad. I do think he's a good man who has tried his best to be a father figure for me. But when I lost my dad, I didn't want a replacement. I wanted my dad. No one else could ever fill that void in my heart. I discussed with my mom and stepdad whether they would like to do a joint toast or separate ones, as well as choosing songs for walking down the aisle or dancing. During these discussions, my stepdad asked whom I would be walking with, and I told him I would be walking alone. He offered to do it, and I appreciated his offer but insisted on walking alone, as it felt like the best choice for me. He pressed me for a reason, and I explained my reasoning. He expressed that it would mean the world to him if he could walk me down the aisle just once feeling like a real dad instead of being second place to my dad. While I understood his perspective, I reiterated that it was not something I was open to. He mentioned feeling ashamed because he would have to watch me dance with my grandma rather than having a father-daughter dance. And now, having everyone witness me walking alone when they know I have a stepdad will send a strong message. I understand that people may have questions about the dynamics of our relationship. I met my stepdad when I was 9, and he married my mom when I was 10. He offered to adopt me and change my last name, but I declined 5 times during the 8 years I lived with them. Before my mom, he was married and tragically lost his wife and unborn child in an accident. He also became sterile due to the same incident. He always yearned to be a dad. Although we got along well, our relationship meant more to him than it did to me. While he saw a daughter and desired a daughter, I saw a good man who is a wonderful spouse to my mom and treats me well, but doesn't fulfill the emotional father role he desires. Physically, he played the part, but emotionally, I never felt that he was my dad. Everyone in our lives is aware of my perspective, seeing him as my stepdad and not my dad. My mom and stepdad are not financially contributing to the wedding. My fiancé and I are using our own savings for the wedding, which will be relatively small since we have other priorities. My mom and stepdad believe I am being rude and heartless for turning down his offer. Am I the asshole? It is your wedding day, and you have the right to make decisions that feel most comfortable and meaningful to you. It is understandable that you would want to walk down the aisle alone, especially considering the loss of your father and your complicated relationship with your stepdad. You have clearly expressed your reasons and feelings to your mom and stepdad, and they should respect your choice. It is not disrespectful to choose to walk alone, and it is unfair for them to guilt trip you or make you feel bad about it. Your stepdad's offer to walk you down the aisle is kind, but it is your decision to make, and you should prioritize your own emotions and desires for that moment on your special day. Would I be the antagonist for kicking out my emotionally and intellectually disabled sister who has nowhere to go? I was born healthy and my twin sister Amy was born with a disability. The guilt surrounding her birth has heavily influenced our relationship. Our parents were not good at their role, so as children, I tried my best to protect both of us, although I mostly failed. Since Amy had limitations and was unpredictable, she relied solely on me while I had no one else. Throughout our lives, I have been extremely cautious to avoid triggering Amy and have always given in to her demands in order to keep her happy. If I possessed something, it automatically became hers. If she couldn't have certain things such as friends or boyfriends, neither could I, or else she would throw a tantrum. As we grew older, Amy's manipulation became more subtle. Instead of directly demanding things, she would complain to make me feel guilty and then ask for something, usually money. I didn't notice this pattern of manipulation until my fiancé Brian, male 30, pointed it out, as it had become the norm for us. Despite not being too disabled to work, Amy struggles with delaying gratification. As soon as she receives her paycheck, she spends it all on items like weed, anime merchandise, clothes, and makeup. 6 months ago, she was evicted due to failure to pay rent, and around the same time, she got fired from her job for reasons I still don't know. She had no other place to turn to. Initially, I offered to let Amy stay with me until she found another job, but she ended up staying longer than expected. She isn't contributing to the rent, paying for her own groceries, gas, or any other expenses, yet she constantly returns with shopping bags. Besides overstaying her welcome, her treatment towards me has made Brian uncomfortable. She constantly insults me, uses guilt trips, and displays other harmful behaviors. Amy's mistreatment is exclusive to me, taking advantage of the fact that Brian isn't always present. Last week, Brian and I discovered that Amy has been stealing money from me throughout her time here. When confronted, she admitted to it without offering any apologies, instead shifting the blame onto me. Amy stole over $2,000 from me, in addition to the hundreds I've been spending on her behalf, all without receiving a simple thank you, to provide her with food, clothing, and more. To make matters worse, when I arrived home from work before Brian, Amy cornered me and clarified that she wouldn't attend our engagement party. Her reasons were that she felt I cared more about Brian and neglected her due to spending time with him. Additionally, she claimed she couldn't afford an outfit for the party because I informed her that she needed to start covering her own grocery expenses and contributing to rent. This was prior to discovering her theft. Amy used this as an opportunity to ask me to buy her an expensive dress for the party, essentially punishing me for setting boundaries. If I were to kick Amy out, she would have nowhere else to go. When I initially told her she had to start paying for her own groceries, she replied with, "I guess I'll starve." And part of me is concerned she might actually face that situation. However, enabling Amy is not fair to Brian either. Would I be the asshole if I gave Amy a 1-month ultimatum? Either pay me back the $2,000 plus she stole and contribute to 1/3 of the rent, or leave. It sounds like you have been enabling Amy's behavior for far too long, and it's negatively impacting both your mental and financial well-being. She has been taking advantage of you and your kindness. Setting boundaries and expecting her to contribute towards rent and groceries is completely reasonable. Giving her a deadline to pay back the money she stole or leave is a fair ultimatum. It's important to prioritize your own happiness and well-being, as well as your relationship with Brian. However, it might be a good idea to consider seeking professional guidance or therapy to navigate this situation and establish healthier boundaries with Amy. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.